Hi, I'm John Arnold, and I want to welcome you to another video by The Practical Disciple. In today's video, we're going to explore what an epistle is, and I'm going to give you some overview of some things to watch for when you're reading an epistle. The epistles are 22 of the books of the New Testament, so they're a significant portion of the New Testament, and they play a variety of roles in the New Testament. Now, at its most basic understanding, epistle is simply a letter written from someone to either someone else, a specific individual. That's what we find, for instance, with 1st and 2nd Timothy. Sometimes an epistle is a letter sent to a specific church, or there's instances where an epistle is sent to a collection of churches. For example, the epistle, the letter Paul wrote to Galatia, the churches in Galatia, that's a region actually. Galatia is a large area. It's not a specific town, and that letter would have gone to multiple churches. The letters were oftentimes circulated too. I mean, Paul will mention, hey, please share this letter with so-and-so. These are not all the letters that Paul wrote, and they're not all written by Paul. Some of the epistles are written by other authors. Hebrews, it's really uncertain as to who wrote Hebrews. Some of the letters like 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, Jude, those are different authors. The epistles, though, serve a huge variety of purpose within the New Testament. For example, when Paul's writing Timothy, Timothy is a young leader, and I love reading 1st and 2nd Timothy because Paul, here's this veteran Christian, and he is writing a young leader and encouraging him in the faith and instructing him how to be a leader in the church and encouraging him as to some issues and things that he needs to address. A lot of the epistles deal with trying to help the church as it emerges and it finds its identity as the body of Jesus Christ. You just stop and remember, the church initially was coming out of Judaism, and the very first believers would have been Jews who believed in Jesus as the Messiah. And slowly it began to expand beyond just the Jews and incorporate Gentiles. But that spectrum had a variety of kind of half steps in between. And Paul, particularly in his letters, was oftentimes trying to reconcile differences among the groups upon that spectrum. And roughly that spectrum kind of looked like this. On one end, we had what I would call the Jewish Jews. And it may seem like a funny thing to call them, but what I mean by that is these are Jews who were both culturally and they were ethnically Jewish. Born Jewish, grew up in the Jewish faith, fully Jewish. You move over a step or so away from that, and you have what are called sometimes the Hellenist or the Hellenistic Jews. And these are Jews who had incorporated a lot of Greek culture into their life. They may know the Greek language. Greek ideology begins to influence their thinking, and they may have adopted Greek customs. And frequently when we talk about Hellenistic Jews, we're talking about Jews who are in synagogues that were part of what they call the diaspora. They were outside of Israel, living in Greek culture, but as Jews. And so they become kind of a mix of things, if you will. You step over another step away from the Hellenistic Jews, and you have what are called the God-fearers. Now, the God-fearers ethnically are Gentiles, born Greek or Roman, and they have adopted Jewish faith, and they're converts into Judaism. And then if you move yet one more step over on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Gentiles who are thoroughly non-Jewish. Ethnically, they are not Jewish. In their customs and their belief structure, they may not have any real familiarity with Judaism at all. And you have everything in between, and out of that, the early church is emerging. So Paul, for instance, had to deal with frequently the Jewish end of the spectrum wanting to hang on to legalism of the Mosaic law and impose it on people who were coming in from the Gentile end of the spectrum, or the God-fearing end of the spectrum. And sometimes they're referred to as the Judaizers. And it was a huge, difficult problem to be reconciled in the early church. So epistles are so rich. You have things where you're trying to address false doctrine. There are conflicts that are trying to be addressed. There's encouragement and support. And there's just a tremendous amount of practical instruction on, okay, now you're a Christian, how do you live it out? So keep your ears open for all those things as you're reading through. I guarantee the epistles are going to be a rich break away from, if you're doing through the Bible in a year, the Old Testament narratives. They read quickly, most of them are short, and they deal with things that you deal with today, right now. I mean, very basic ethical considerations for life, like telling the truth and treating one another decently. So enjoy the epistles. Blessings to you as you continue to read. If you have gotten off beaten path on reading, this is a really great place to jump back in because of what I just said. Nice, short, quick readings that are engaging. Why don't you hop back in with us with the epistles? Don't worry about what you missed and keep moving. If you get a daily habit, eventually you'll read all of that, and you'll read through the Bible multiple times. So, once again, blessings to you from the Practical Disciple, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.